Blog Talk Radio.
Hello, everyone. This is Laura Smith of Blog Talk Radio. Good evening. It is 9 o'clock p.m. here in Calgary, Alberta, Wednesday night, February the 1st. I'm glad to be here. This is One Child Abuse Survivor to Another. We're on for 30 minutes, a live internet streaming radio broadcast for blogtalkradio.com. And the chat room's open. I don't have any links in there or anything, but you're welcome to hang out in there if you want to. I'll be watching the switchboard tonight just in case anybody wants to phone in. Usually when I have my switchboard open, I get a lot of trolls and prank callers and stuff like that. So it's I just generally have to hang up on them. But if you have something you want to talk about or whatever, you're more than welcome to call in. I'm about abuse. I'm talking about my own story, my own journey, my own healing journey mainly, dealing with my past and really working through a lot of the issues that I needed to work through in order to be a functioning, sort of a more healthy or functioning adult. Had no real good examples to when I was growing up of how to behave and how to get along in this world. Didn't have any good examples on how to do things in life, how to get things, how to get what I needed, how to get help first of all, and just that I should that by behaving certain ways it's just detrimental to my health, detrimental to my life, and I was brought up to behave these very antisocial, sort of bad ways. So I've had to learn how to correct all this, and it's been a job because some of it I didn't recognize, and some of it I had to have pointed out to me by life coaches and other people that I'd talked to. I wasn't seeing them, but I ran into them, and they were pointing out a few things that I could change, to help myself out, and that I didn't even recognize. So I started heavily about 2 years ago. And so I've been doing a lot of shows here on Blog Talk Radio, as most people know. Thanks, everybody, for tuning in. But you have to listen at your own discretion. I'm talking about abuse, and it's a very sensitive subject. It's sensitive material. If you're not sure, if you'll be triggered by the material, by the topics of abuse, that it may bother you, cause you problems, and if you're just starting out in your healing journey, you want to be really careful what you're listening to and make sure that you're safe enough and you're in a safe enough place in your walk that you're not going to hurt yourself or hurt somebody else, right? So listen at your own discretion to all of my shows, and I do put a discretionary warning on my shows because I'm just talking truth, and truth is very painful. Truth hurts, and truth is truth, and unless we really get down to the truth of the issues surrounding, surrounding adult survivor issues and child abuse, it's never going to change, right? So that's why I decided to talk about this stuff publicly, and in hopes that, that someone would get something out of it. And there are, like I was saying before, there are people who are studying, students, psychology students, and students who are studying to become therapists and counselors who listen to my shows. So I'm hoping that they get something. And other people and survivors, I'm hoping that, you'll just realize that there is help out there, and whatever way you choose to go, group support or seeing a counselor, therapist, or psychotherapist or whatever, but, make sure you get some help, right? Don't sit and allow yourself to be destroyed by this. There's really good help out there, and if you haven't found good help yet, keep looking, because, you just have to keep searching until you find what works for you. So, I always put this discretionary warning on my shows, but listen at your own discretion. And young people 18 and under, I just ask that you have someone listen to the show who's an adult, who's older, who can help you make a decision whether you should be listening to my shows or not, right? Age appropriately, because my shows are not for children and not for younger children, and they're definitely, there's a lot of adult content on my shows, so that's why I put a warning on my shows. So thanks, everybody, for being here. I really appreciate it. I had a day where, I didn't know what I was going to talk about tonight. I never do. When I do these shows, I don't plan them ahead. Like, I've done almost 900 shows now, or maybe right about the 900 mark, and I don't plan my shows ahead of time. Like, I just decide just before the show what I'm going to talk about, because that's real. It's coming from me. It's coming from my heart. And it's really what's going on in my life right at the moment. Today, I had no idea what I was going to talk about tonight, but I figured I'd just keep on talking. And it's quite interesting. I was just sitting around. I'm off work because I'm in between jobs, and I'm job searching. And I got a knock on my door, and it was a funny knock. So I thought, who would that be? Because nobody really comes over to visit me, because usually I'm working during the day. I'm usually working all the time. And so I thought, I wonder who that is. So I took a look at the people, and it was my dad, my abuser dad. And I don't talk to my dad. I've cut him off. And, last time I had talked to him was, last year sometime around the summertime. And I told him, I said, I I can't do the family thing anymore. The pretend, let's pretend we're a family thing. We never were. It never will be. Like, I can't be in denial with you guys, like the rest of my immediate family, right? And so I told him this a while back, right? I didn't want to be rude and hurt him. I didn't want to say, okay, get out of my life. I never want to talk to you again. What I'm trying to do is get it through his head that I really want no contact, and without hurting him, because he didn't mind hurting me and he didn't mind hurting my mother. I talked on my last show. I talk about this on every show. He didn't mind hurting us, but I'm not the type. I'm not like them. I'm not like my abuser parents. I'm not like my abusers. Going around intentionally hurting people. Like, that's the last thing I want to do is hurt anybody, including my abuser. And so, I'm trying to be delicate about the situation. But, he just doesn't take a hint, because in his mind, he lives in a pretend world because he's mentally ill. And he just thinks everything's great, but I couldn't let him in. I could not let him in. And so I thought tonight that I'd sort of just talk about boundaries and the issues of boundaries and the survivors, adult survivors of child abuse or any type of abuse, really, domestic violence or whatever. You have to really understand and learn about boundaries. I know that I did. And, to understand really what they are and how important they really are, especially for people who have grown up abused in an abusive environment where there were no healthy boundaries between, the caretakers, the caregivers, whoever they were, the mom or the dad, or between whoever brought you up, if whoever it was in the situation, right? If there were no healthy boundaries shown at that point, then you wouldn't want a child. And then very often people like us, like myself, end up, not knowing what a healthy boundary is, and end up in these relationships in our adulthood that are abusive, because we don't know to set boundaries, and we don't know what boundaries even are, and what we're supposed to, that we do have rights, and we have a right to stand up for ourselves, and that we don't have to allow people, we don't have to let people abuse us. That's a choice. Like, as a child, there's not much you can do to protect yourself. Like, as a child, there's really nothing you can do, unless somebody wants to get you some help, which is very rare. As an adult, we have every right to get help, and we should not allow ourselves to be abused in any way. I don't care if that's verbal abuse, emotional, psychological abuse. It doesn't matter to me what kind of abuse it is. It hurts. All of it is extremely hurtful. And so, I was sitting there today, looking at my peephole, and there was my dad, and I'm like, oh my God, like, part of me really wanted to let him in, because I'm his daughter, right? And see, sadly enough, like, I talked about this on my show I think it was Monday night, that, I love my parents, right? They don't love me, right? That's the whole issue. And people say, oh, they must have loved you, right? It's like, okay, well, you weren't there, and you didn't really see it, and you didn't go through what I went through with them, so really, you got to kind of butt out there. I kind of think that, in a way, they tried. They really did a really poor job. I mean, really bad. Like, they didn't really go out of their way to try, but they made a very small attempt to sort of say, well, okay, as your parents, I suppose, that we kind of love you. My parents didn't love their children at all, really. And I try to be nice and good by saying that they possibly could have loved us. What I'm trying to do is be the good guy, you know what I mean? Because I'm trying to be the one who's not spiteful and hateful and rude. There wasn't an ounce of love from my parents given to us from my parents, not 1 ounce. Now, my dad used to play all the kids against my mom. So he would say stuff like, oh, I love my little girl, like, to me, talking to me. Because my dad was insane, right? Mentally ill, and he was absolutely out of his rocker. And he would try to get me to go along with whatever he was going to do. So one time he wanted to go to California and leave my mom and the kids, all the rest of the kids, and he wanted to take me with him. So then, of course, I was Daddy's little girl, right? And my dad was very sick and twisted and very much one of those Chester the molesters, kind of touching, molesting type person, right? So, as he's telling me, you're Daddy's little girl, he's sort of, fondling me and stuff. And then he's like, we need to move. We'll move to California and leave your abusive mother. We'll leave your mother because she hurts you. And because, see, my mother was beating the shit out of me when I was a child, and he wasn't stopping it. He was actually helping her, you know what I mean? In a way, they would take turns. And, they played their children against each other. Both my parents did it. My mom did it. My dad did it. When they wanted to look good in our eyes, to get us to take their side, then they would say stuff like, well, I love my boys. That my mom would say stuff like that, but she would never just say, you kids are just awesome. I just love my children. And they would never say that. They didn't. Absolutely they didn't. They hated us and they hated each other. And they did their very best to destroy us, right? Absolutely horrific. But this is the kind of stuff that happens. So, like here's my dad standing there at the door. He's 90 years old almost, and he's not well. How he got across town, he gets across town on the bus. Like, I live in a big city. Like, we live in a big city. My dad moved up here a while ago because he wanted to be closer to me and my sister and my brother, right? Because my brother moved up here many, many years ago, back when I was a kid, and left the family behind. I really can't blame him, and didn't want anything to do with the family. And then I moved up, and he was really pissed off. He was like, why are you following me up here? Like, I was having a good life without you. Like, because my family, we all don't like each other, right? And so I said, well, I won't bother you. You can just do your own thing, right? I'm just coming up here because I want to move up. I was really just escaping my abusive past. I thought I was anyway, when I moved here about 17 years ago. Then my sister moved up after I did, probably about 7-8 years after I did. She moved up because she didn't want to be down there by herself. And my sister actually moved up here to get away from my dad. So this is all, tonight's show is all about my abuser dad, right? Well, my dad was living with her after my mom passed away. She was kind enough to let him stay with her after my mom died. And I was already living up here for for 1.5 years anyway. And so I moved back up here, and I just went down to the funeral. I didn't go down there to live or anything. I just went down for the funeral and I came back up. And when my sister took my dad in after my mom passed away, and she allowed him to stay with her in their home for about 5 years, and he literally drove her crazy. But that's how he is. And so I told her, I said, don't take any of his garbage. Just put him out. Like, he's 70-something years old. Just tell him to get his own apartment. Put his stuff out on the front steps and just tell him to go. Like, it's your house. You're like a 30-something-year-old woman. You don't have to take his garbage anymore. You know what I mean? So here's my sister who's 5 years older than me, well, I'll just move, I'll leave the country, this way he can't follow me up there, which was exactly the plan, and that's why she did that. She did that to get away from my dad. Well, it worked, because he didn't want to come up here. He wanted to stay in the desert, and likes the desert, and he wanted to stay down in Arizona or New Mexico, so he's there, and my sister moved up here. So then, 2 years ago, about a year and a half ago, no, 2.5 years ago now, just trying to remember. No, I haven't seen him. No, this must have been 2.5 years ago. Yeah, he moved up here, and nobody else would let him stay with him. Like, my brother was like, no way, you are not staying with us, And my dad wanted to stay with my other sister, and she said, no, not at all. I already kept you for 5 years, and you drove me crazy, so forget that. But she had some excuse. She didn't say that, but that's what she told me. I knew that. But she told him that he couldn't stay with her because she didn't have enough room in her place, right? And so the only other option was me, So I said, we can try it, we'll give it a try. And you only have 1 year, because really that's about the length of time that we figured that it would take him to get a senior's lodge, right? And you have to apply. Right? So he moved up from the States. He was Canadian, so no problem getting in here. Moved up and stayed with me for a year and drove me absolutely crazy and caused me to spin out of control, which is why I started to write the blog and started to speak about abuse and about what happened to my family and stuff, because he brought it all back. Like, I was sort of doing pretty good until he was around me, and then because he was staying in my apartment, and he was here every day, all day, because he's, old man, right? He's not going to be out very much, right? So he was out, he was here hanging around, and he was just bringing the same garbage back all over again, And I was like, oh, my God, it's not like he can physically do anything to me anymore, even though he was holding a knife out at me one night. But he's just mentally ill, so he's just psychologically damaged. And so he throws that on everybody around him, right? And so my sister noticed his behavior because she was coming over to visit and stuff, and I was telling her, I need your support here because he's, you know how he is. He drove you crazy for 5 years. Now he's driving me crazy, but I need you to back me up on this. So she did. So she came and she would talk to him, and he wouldn't listen, and he was just, because he's mentally ill and he's crazy, and he's always been crazy. This is how he's always been. He's just too old to get violent. He can't slap us around or beat on us anymore, right? Because he's too old, right? So but we still have to put up with his garbage, which is his mouth. You know what I mean? Mainly stuff coming out of his mouth. It's just horrible. So yeah, so my sister noticed his behavior. She's like, man, I mean, you know, it's only like hopefully a few more months and he'll be able to move out. Well, my dad was pretty well planning on staying for good. He's like, well, I don't think I'm going to move out. I'm going to stay. I was like, no, you're not, Dad. This is my place. You're going to have to go. You know, he has no idea about boundaries. He doesn't mind hurting people and then just walking all over them. It's like, I told him, you are getting a place. You are going to get a place. You know, you are moving out to a senior's place. It's going to be, and he did. He moved into a really nice place, actually. He gets 3 meals a day, really nice. I mean, it's top of the line. Like you know, nobody I know is eating as good as he is. They're well looked after. It's a beautiful place. But, you know, so that's good. I'm happy about that. But the issue is that part of me wanted to let him in because today when he came over, because part of me is this daughter that wants to have that relationship with my dad that I never had, a normal relationship, you know. And I know that it's not possible because every single time I'm around him, he hurts me. Every single time. He can't go for 20 seconds without hurting me. God's honest truth. And this is what he does to my sister. This is what he does to all of us. It's not just me. It's not a personal pick. My dad he's twisted. He's mentally ill. And he caused a lot of problems for us in our family growing up. And he hurt my mother, you know, and it's absolutely horrific what he did. And, you know, there's that little part of me inside of me, you know, that wanted so badly to let him in and, you know, fix him lunch and have him sit down and chat with them and then get him a cab ride home or something, you know, but I already know how it's going to end, you know. It's just he's mentally ill. And so I have to have, my boundaries have to be set, you know. So when I didn't open the door, I just couldn't deal with that. I was like, no, my boundaries are set. He's not welcome, you know, because he's not welcome to hurt me. See, if he was going to behave himself and be decent, it'd be different. But I already know him. See, that's the thing. Abusers are real cunning and they're real manipulative, right? So he stands at my door looking through the peephole, smiling, like, oh, it's your dad, you know. And it's like, oh, yeah, you may as well have the music from Jaws playing, bump, 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 bump. You know, my dad is an evil, twisted, abusive man. You know, he's an abuser, right? And he hurt his family. And he walks around like a pious Christian, like he's something, you know, or some sort of a angelic saint, which he thinks he is a saint, right? Which, for real, he thinks he's like an angel or whatever. But anyway, he's mentally ill, so there you go. But the thing is, you know, it's like, no, that's the kind of stuff that people, especially survivors of abuse, you know, quite often will allow these abusers or abusive people, because it's mainly family, and most of the time it'd be family members, it's people who are close to us, generally, that end up hurting us like that, or friendships sometimes. Or it's can be a boss type relationship too, where, you know, abusive bosses and stuff, or even abusive coworkers. But a lot of times it's family, and that's what hurts so much. And it's like, you know, it's hard to deal with that, you know, because I have no connection with my family whatsoever. But that's because we're all toxic with each other. Like we cannot behave around each other because we have no history of behaving properly together, right? So we don't even know how to treat each other decently. Like, and I can't even say that that I'm not excluded in that. Like what they cause me to be, like when I'm around my dad, my sister, my brother, they bring out that old role in me that I used to play for so long, which was the role of the rebellious, no good loser daughter, you know, who was just an idiot and deserved what she got, you know what I mean, sort of thing, right? And so, and that they expect me to play that role. So the minute I stand up for myself, then they start becoming abusive because they're like, you're supposed to be taking this. We've always been able to abuse you before. How come you're not taking this, right? And that's exactly where the conversation goes. And I mean, this is where the conversation went that year that my dad was staying here with me, because I was like, I'm not taking your garbage anymore, Dad. Like, I'm not. And he's like, well, what's changed? You know, you've always had to deal with that's just life. You just have to deal with it. I'm like, no, I don't have to take your garbage anymore. You know, this is the issue, Dad. Like, I know now that you're a manipulator, you're just an abuser, and you hurt my family. And here you sit here in my place today, and I was nice enough to let you come and stay with me because I wanted to help, you know, and I wanted to see if we could get some sort of relationship built that was never built. And here you are, Ace, calling my mother a whore and, telling me that I was just this worthless piece of shit. And what am I supposed to sit here and listen to this garbage? What, because I used to listen to it? Well, I had to listen to it because I had a fist crammed down my face. That's why I had to listen to it. I was forced into listening to their garbage because I was being beaten, What am I supposed to do? I was like, 8 years old, 7 years old, 10 years old? Well, I was kind of forced into listening to their garbage back then, but not anymore. I'm like almost 50. It's like, no, I don't have to take his shit anymore. Excuse my language, but that's the truth of it. And, that's where it comes down to, with abusers and their victims. Abusers know that they have this hold over their victim, right? And so many times if it's a parent, the parents know that they have that hold over the child, because no matter how old that child is going to be longing for that parental relationship. No matter how twisted and sick it was, they know that child is going to. There's an opportunity there for them to use that, right? Because then because they know that's trouble, and it doesn't matter how old you are, they'll still pull their shit, and that's just horrible. That's just absolutely horrible. But that's how an abuser's mind thinks, because they're always trying to remain in control. It doesn't matter how old the kid is. It doesn't matter if the kid's 5 years old or 25 or 45, right? The parent still wants to remain in control. But the issue is if they have mental issues and they have behavioral problems and they are abusive, then why should the child or the adult child put up with it, right? You shouldn't have to. You shouldn't have to take abuse your whole life from somebody just because they're your parent or they're a sibling or whatever. You know what I mean? That would be, excuse my language, and this is very vulgar, and you have to listen at your own discretion to my shows, but I'm getting serious here. That would be like me if my brother was still living, who's 13 years older than me, allowing him to come over and still rape me. That's the same thing. That is the exact same thing. At some point, we have to say no. At some point, my abuser died years and years ago, but my brother. But the issue is I'm just saying stuff. If survivors don't learn boundaries, they're going to keep getting run over by the same hurtful people unless they completely blow off the relationship, which I've done with my family, because I realized that they were going to be absolutely not willing to see me in any other light except for the role that they wanted to see me in, which was just this rotten little punk who's getting kicked around because of my attitude, and too bad I deserved it. That was their vision of me, and that's not who I am. So I'm like, if you people don't want to get real, you can butt out of my life, and that's basically what I told them all. They are all gone out of my life. So I have no family left, no immediate family, right? But people would say, well, isn't that sad? Like, don't you miss having somebody like your sister around or whatever? Well, no, because my sister treated me like shit, even just up until a couple of years ago. Why would I want to continue to allow her to do that, right? And it's like, well, don't you miss having the family stuff? No. Like, why would I want to let them continue to abuse me, right? No, forget it. See, and the issue is my never, ever treated my sister like that. Never. And the sad thing is my dad really didn't treat my big brother like that either. He was the oldest brother. He was 16 when I was born, and he moved out before I was born. Actually, he left because of the abuse. He just took off. And, these guys, my dad didn't treat them like that. So see, they're the living children, actually. There's nobody else left. And they don't seem to have a problem with my dad, even though my dad hurt the rest of us extremely badly and, including that, abused my mother. They don't seem to have a problem with that. It's okay that my dad raped my mother and beat up on my brothers and hurt me and just really did whatever he wanted to. And what it is they don't want to fight that, because if they agree with me and my two siblings, because they do, we have, like I said in the past, talked about it, and they do. It's not like they're in complete denial. They just don't want to pursue it. They don't want to say, look, Dad, you should be held accountable for your behavior, and if you're not going to behave properly now, then we're not going to have nothing to do with you. What they should be doing is telling my dad to straighten up if he wants to have a relationship with me. You know what I mean? Because I'm not taking any more of his garbage. And so it's, what are you supposed to do? It's like, no, they'll stick up for him. So they're all siding together now against me. But that's because I started writing books about, the truth and the reality of the abuse that we suffered. But the issue is that, people say, well, isn't that just lonely? It's like, well, not really, because you know what? I'd rather not have anybody in my life than somebody who's going to hurt me continually. Somebody who's just going to keep bringing me down and keep hurting me. Why would I want to do that? Just to keep somebody in my life. That's why a lot of people will stay in abusive relationships, and it's not just women. I mean, men do it too, and it's because they don't want to be alone. So they say, well, I guess this is better than nothing. Is it really? No, I don't think so. I can find a million things to do on my own rather than let somebody mistreat me and bring me down. A million. Just watching TV is better than that. You know what I mean? And I don't even really care to watch TV. But I mean, I would resort to that if I had to, because it's we have to be worth it. Like I saw there on Facebook today, there was a abuse victims voice day on the Facebook group, and there was a post there that said we have to know that we're worth it. We do not deserve to be abused by anybody, and we really don't. And we have to be able to set those boundaries and make those clear decisions on how we're going to allow people to treat us. It's really important because so many times, especially growing up abused, if you grew up like I was born into this, so it's not like I saw any good examples, right? But later in life, I started paying attention to other people's families and noticed that their behaviors were different. It was quite noticeable. And I was like, they're hugging. They're not hitting each other. Wow. Oh, the parents are sitting together on the couch and they're not killing each other. It's very, very different, right? Nobody's throwing food across the room. Wow, this is pretty interesting. I don't see anybody chasing anybody with a belt around here, And there doesn't seem to be any cursing or calling each other names. So I started to notice these slight differences from my home compared to other people's homes, and started to keep track. And I thought, wow, not everybody behaves like my parents. Not everybody treats their family this way. This is different. And I liked it. I love to hang out at my friends' houses because there was nobody hurting anybody over there. Because I know what it's like to be hurt. You know what I mean? I know what it's like to see other people being hurt. And it's not funny. You know what I mean? A lot of people think it's a joke. Well, it's not a joke, when you're being pounded and beaten on and verbally cursed and treated like garbage by the people that are supposed to love you and protect you and care for you. And so, I started to pay attention to these boundaries and stuff. And I started to think, wow, this is so different. You know what I mean? Like, I started, that's where I got my information from, was from some other people who had some pretty healthy ways of living, compared to what mine was. And so, today when I made that decision to not let him in, of course it was hurtful, because, my dad's going to die and I won't even know because I won't be there, And, I could go before him. We don't know. We all have a number of days, a certain number of days, right? So we just don't know. But the issue is that I've always prepared myself for that because I thought, well, am I going to his funeral or am I? I always swore up and down I was not going to his funeral. And the answer is no, I'm not going to his funeral. I'm not. I'm not doing it. He doesn't deserve my presence at his funeral. You know what I mean? He has not tried at all to be any kind of a father. He has not tried at all. He did not try at all to be any kind of a husband. And he didn't try at all to be any kind of a decent man, a decent father. So why should I go to his funeral? I refuse. And so, this is something that I have to live with, but it's my boundary. And it's my boundaries that I've set that I'm very clear on and I'm perfectly okay with. You know what I mean? And that's just the way it has to be. But we have to whatever you do not allow people to abuse you, and you make sure if you get some help if you're in this situation and you're being abused, you get some help. You make sure that you talk to some professionals or somebody who can help you to get out of the situation. If you're a young person listening, make sure that you get some help. You make a phone call and you reach out and you get some help, right? Do not allow yourself to be abused. It's not right. No one deserves to be abused. There isn't anyone whose fault it is who's being abused. It's never our fault. It can't be, right? So have a great night, everybody. I'll be back on Friday night. Child abuse prevention is up to us, and then the weekend. So take good care of yourselves. If you need something, I'll be around. Leave me a message here on Blog Talk Radio or whatnot, or get a hold of me on Facebook. I should be around, and we'll talk to you real soon. Bye-bye.